Thank you, Julianne. Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Meet the Instruments class on Zoom. This is our first go-around with this format. Following the very popular classes that focus on the pipe organ and then the woodwind and string instruments, this term we are spotlighting instruments in the brass and percussion families. Each of the class sessions will be presented by an artist faculty member from U.S. School of Music. Today, we're focusing on one of my very favorite instruments, the French horn. Our presenter, Dr. Paul Basler, is professor of music at UF, where he has been on the faculty since 1993. That was a very good year for us, when we were able to recruit Paul to come and join our faculty. Prior to his appointment at UF, Dr. Basler served as the Fulbright Senior Lecturer in music at Kenyatta University of Nairobi, Kenya, and taught at Western Carolina University. A winner of several teaching awards, Dr. Basler has been a frequent guest performer and lecturer at national and international music festivals. He's also been a member of numerous symphony orchestras and has received American Cultural Affairs Specialist Grant from the U.S. Department of State. In addition to his many noteworthy achievements as a French horn player, Dr. Basler is a prolific composer. His works have been performed at Carnegie Hall, the Kennedy Center, the Sydney Opera House, Chicago's Orchestra Hall, the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, and at Lincoln Center. Paul received his Bachelor of Music degree from Florida State University and Master of Music, Master of Arts, and the Doctor of Musical Arts degrees from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Paul Basler. We're in for a real treat.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you all. And so you need to know that I love Don McLaughlin, okay? He hired me 28 years ago and was a spectacular human being. Him along with Arnold Penland, who was the assistant dean at the time, Marcia Isaacson, who was also incredible. I mean, we had just an amazing leadership in the College of the Arts. So thanks, Don. I love you, man. Okay, so we've got so much to cover, and this is going to be a lot of fun, okay? This is not going to be boring. I am not going to spew out numbers and dates for you all, I mean, which I hated as a student myself. So we're going to start out with, we're dealing with the French horn. So what I want to show you, first of all, is where the horn came from. Okay, so here, this is an antelope horn, and this is from Kenya, and this was very delicious, I'm just going to tell you. So I brought this back from Kenya. So, I mean, you know, shofars are like this as well. And essentially, this is an animal's horn, and there is a hole right here. And this is kind of like a conch shell. You can do the same thing. So what you do is you just bring it up, and the sound of this is... So it doesn't have a lot of pitches, but essentially this is the ancestor of the horn itself. Okay, so I'm going to explain how I got into the horn and all that in just a second, but I want to show you. So from that right there, the animal horn, to essentially what is considered the Mercedes-Benz of all horns in the world. This is a triple horn. Okay, so this horn has 3 horns built into one. This was made in Germany for me. It was handmade by Engelbert Schmidt. You can see that there are 3 sets of slides right here. I have 7 valves on this instrument. This was made for me, I think, 12 years ago. I actually bought this in Las Vegas. I'm just going to tell you right now. This was during my midlife crisis. And so there is a joke that runs through the horn world that when American males of a certain age get to that certain point in their life, they don't buy motorcycles, they buy triple horns. And so this was what I did when I was 40-some years old. It's actually a pretty stunning instrument, but this is considered, you know, the top of the instruments. So, okay, now we're going to have a little show time here. So let me share the screen, and I'm going to share computer sound. And now I'm going to take you to my computer. All right, so here we go. Okay, so let me cancel out of this. The first thing that I want to do So here I am with my brother in Wisconsin Dells in 1964, pinching a deer's cheek. Um,
Paul,
yeah.
pardon me. We see something that looks like maybe an inbox OCAMIC January 2021 presentation.
Okay. Do you see this picture right now? Are you seeing this? A picture? A photo?
Don, maybe you can unmute. I don't see a picture.
Okay. So you know what? I'm going to stop the video. So let's see. And so let's do this. Do you see this?
I see still that same thing. Looks like you're like the view.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
let's do.
I'll give me a thumbs up out there. Do you see pictures or
All right, just a second.
no?
Not yet.
Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to share the screen one more time. And let's go here. Okay, so do you see this right here? Do you see this picture?
Okay, now it's black.
All right. So I do this like hundreds of times and this has never been an issue. So, I mean, I teach like this. So let's see. Okay, I'm back to, all right, so let's try it now. Let's share the screen. And do you see this? Do you
I
see
don't.
this thing that says Wisconsin Beginnings?
No, it says Basler has started screen sharing, but I don't see anything.
Okay, so sometimes it takes a little time. It shouldn't take this long, but do you see this picture right here?
Not yet.
Okay, so,
I'm just glad it's not just me. This happens to me sometimes.
okay, well, this is the first time this has happened for me. So, I mean, I'm seeing it on the screen. All right, so you know what? I'm going to go over here. Let's make sure. All right. So, okay, do you see this picture?
Not yet.
None of this? You're not seeing any of these things that I'm scrolling through? That it shows that it says that I'm sharing the screen? Okay. So while that's happening, I can actually go to something else right here. So so the French horn. The first thing that we need to talk about is that it's not French. So this is a big deal in the horn world. You have people who argue about this all the time. Well, not among horn players, because we call ourselves horn players. The only people in the world who call themselves French horn players are Americans. The rest of the world calls themselves horn players. And the reason why this French thing came about is because 200 years ago, some of the horns that the people in England were playing came from France. And so they called them French horns to distinguish them from other instruments. So we do not play a French instrument. In fact, these horns are not made in France. And it's very much like the English horn. So I'm sure that Leslie Odom probably talked about this in her woodwind presentation, but the English horn is not English. The English horn, the cor anglais, is actually a big oboe. And so the horn itself, in 1971, the International Horn Society proclaimed that we shall forever forth be known as horn players. Now, in the United States, we call ourselves French horn players to distinguish ourselves primarily from jazz musicians. You know how they always talk about picking up horns? Like a saxophone player will say, hey, I'm going to pick up my horn and play. Well, so that's the thing right there. So we do not play a French instrument. The background of the instrument itself, we come from, of course, this right here, the horn of an animal, but then our other ancestor is the hunting horn, and the hunting horns came from Germany. Now, I'm going to try to share this. I've got a bunch of videos. I don't understand what's happening here because let me just make sure that, okay, I am co-host. So share the screen, share, let's go optimize for video clip. Okay, so, all right. So do you see my Safari open up here?
Yes, yes.
Good. Okay, so here we go. These are hunting horns in the Alps. Okay, so what you have there, I mean, this is, I know it looks kind of funny, all these guys in lederhosen, but this is a big deal in the horn world. Did you hear that okay? Was that all right? Yay! Okay, good, because there's other videos that are pretty exciting. So there is the hunting horn, and you saw that it's just a big round metal thing with a, you know, a mouthpiece on the end and a bell. Speaking of which, the French horn, like all the other brass instruments, uses a metal mouthpiece. Now you see this here. We have a very tiny one. So the rest of the brass world make fun of us. They say, how can you even play on this thing? Well, what we tell them is, how can you play on a tuba mouthpiece? Have you ever seen one of those things? It looks like you're going into surgery. It's this thing that goes over your entire face. This right here. And what you just heard was that the person takes this mouthpiece, brings it up to their face, and you're going to buzz on it. So essentially it's like this. That sound. So this is what we do. We put this into the instrument itself at the end of the lead pipe. And then this essentially creates the sound through the instrument. Now, by the way, this instrument is 12 feet long. But you can see how beautiful it is. This is like, you know, the the epitome of holiday season instrument on Christmas trees. This thing is 12, actually this one right here is 18 feet long. But there's 18 feet of tubing. A fun fact about this is that this instrument is primarily copper. It's 60% copper, and there's some zinc in it as well. But that's the mouthpiece right there. Now, you just saw these natural horns without any valves or anything. Well, they brought those into the orchestras at the time of Bach and Mozart. But again, we didn't have any of these magical levers here. This was called a natural horn. And so these instruments themselves could only play the overtone series. Now, the overtone series is what all instruments are based upon. You have a fundamental note and then an octave above it, a fifth and an octave. The French horn, one of the reasons why this is such a very difficult instrument is we sit in the overtone series where we can play tons of notes without changing our fingers. So I'm going to show that to you right now. This instrument right here, actually this is a brand new instrument. And in fact, last year when we gave a concert for you all in March, before everybody was locked down, was the first concert of this instrument. This was made for me in Germany, and I got it last February. The overtone series on this instrument, I am pitched in F, it's called. And so the fundamental note I cannot actually play on this instrument. It's not there, it doesn't exist. I start on number 2, and that's this note right here. So if you play piano, that is the low F on the piano. That's number 12. So all of those notes are played without touching any fingers. You know, a lot of people think, how can you make all your notes on brass instruments? You only have 3 little buttons to press down. Well, it involves your ear and your mouth, your embouchure changing the pitches. But primarily, the French horn is by far the most wicked of all the brass instruments. You might, if you've ever been to concerts by major symphony orchestras and the reviews come out and they always are complaining how the horn player made so many mistakes. Well, this is kind of tough. And so I'm not pressing any fingers. I'm playing all of that by just using my mouth. So that's our overtone series. It's very difficult, but also it's pretty darn magical because there's a bunch of them. Now, I want to share with you, again, I have something to show you. So let's just make sure that I'm going to undo some things here. And so let's share the screen. And okay, do you all see this?
Yes.
Yay, thank God. Okay, so here we go. So this is Wisconsin. This is 1964. Here I am starting my musical career in 1968. So, of course, like every other child, I started on piano. And this is the John Thompson book. So if you started on piano lessons when you were a kid, you probably used this book. This was my first band method book, the Boosie and Hawkes band method. And this was in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. I actually went to a program which was pretty famous. We had 600 kids in the junior high band program, and we had 40 French horn players. So my teacher was Amy D. Domris, and she was really tough on me. She would allow me to play any mistakes, and I appreciate it now. We played through the Rubank book. So this is a very famous method of books for every single instrument. And these are the books that I used. So I started playing the horn in 6th grade, played piano since I was 5 years old. This was my first horn record. Dennis Brain was the most famous horn player of the 20th century, English. He actually died when he was 36 years old in a car crash coming back from the Edinburgh Festival. They told him not to drive back to London, but he fell asleep at the wheel. But this is a great, great record. So I still have this record. There I am, 1976. I had been playing horn for 2 years by then. This is the bicentennial year, of course. So this is my first parade in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. There I am right in front of the bass drum. And we marched, our band had 100 members in this one, Thomas Jefferson Middle School. These are, again, the books that I use. So if you did play a wind instrument when you were a kid, you probably use these band methods. This is what we consider the Bible of all horn studies, the Koprash book. This is our #1 book. And so I don't know how many versions of this book I've gone through, probably 20 since I was a kid. Here are some more very, very famous books. These are all the type of traditional materials that I used when I was a kid. And I actually studied with horn players from the very beginning in Milwaukee. So John Barrows was teaching at the University of Wisconsin-Madison at the time, and he released this Alec Wilder record, which totally transformed my life because these were all jazzy pieces. I still have this record. Okay, this is my high school graduation picture. Now, this is 1980. The reason I show it, other than that's some pretty great hair there, that horn that you are seeing in this picture, I bought from my teacher, Barry Benjamin, at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I took lessons on Saturdays with him. And this was a used horn. My parents paid $600 for this. So segue 30 years later, at the Kendall Betts Horn Camp in New Hampshire, a very incredible camp that I teach at, I was having lunch one time with Lowell Greer, who is America's premier natural horn player. And we were discussing instruments, and I told him about this horn that I had bought in 1979 from my teacher, Barry Benjamin. And I found out that that was Lowell's horn that he used as principal horn of the Detroit Symphony. He swapped it with Barry a couple of months beforehand for a German instrument, and so I had been playing his instrument all this time. So it is quite incredible how we're all kind of related in that way. Right now, I have been playing horn for 47 years. I'm 58, And so anyhow, that gives you a little background on my horn. My parents were very musical, but they weren't musicians. My dad was an electrical engineer, and he was in the Navy as a radio communications officer. And he met my mother in Istanbul. My mother is Turkish. In fact, my whole family lives in Turkey. And so my mom was incredibly supportive of my music. My dad wanted me to become an engineer, and a doctor and a lawyer. But I mean, he's supportive of it now. Anyhow, this instrument again. This is my instrument right now, the Johannes Finke horn that was made for me last year, and this one right here. This is a nickel silver horn. So you see that the difference is this is very shiny. It's silver. This is a Holton instrument, and these were made in Elkhart, Indiana for a long time. Beautiful instruments. It's very weird that I actually have three horns right now. I am not a horn jock. I am a one horn guy, okay? One horn at a time. And it just so happens that I have three right now. All right. So, all righty. So, and this is my triple horn. This is also made in Germany. Most of the magical horns in the world are made in Germany. That is where the greatest horns are made. There are some really wonderful ones made here in the United States, but I'm kind of partial to these German instruments. All right, so let's talk about the type of people who play horn. So, certain people gravitate to certain instruments. We have jokes about this in the brass world, like very aggressive people play trumpet. Kind of laid back people play tuba. The intellectuals and kind of the smart alecks play French horn. And I found that to be kind of true. So also you have to have a really, really good ear. To play this instrument is really difficult because of the overtone series. Now I want to show you that right now. So let's share the screen again. Okay, share. And we're going to go to this. Okay, so this is the overtone series I was talking about. And this is just a basic format. All instruments are based on this. The French horn is, on the top line, you see it says F horn. So that's mine right there. So I can't play that first note, but I'm going to play the other ones for you now. So I'm going to start on number 2. And that's number 15, and then 16 would come after that. So this is our overtone series. Every wind instrument is going to use this. Here are some basic exercises that we practice. So, and they sound like this. So at the time of Mozart and Beethoven, this is all that they had. So when you listen to orchestra pieces, let's say Haydn Symphony Number 76, the horn players they don't even have to press down any fingerings. Essentially, they'll tell them your horn in D, and then they just essentially play like 8 different notes. So what I've been doing is I've been writing a ton of exercises during COVID world, over 200 for my students and for friends. And this one right here is called Abendlied in den Alpen. It's Evening Song in the Alps. And this is for one of my students here. And I'm going to play it for you. And I'm not going to press down any fingerings. I'm just going to play natural horn. goes on and on and on like that. So the idea here is that until they figured out a system of valves, which happened in like 1810, 1815, horns were natural horns. So you didn't play a lot of notes. You could actually, here's another thing that is kind of interesting. Everybody asks why I stick my hand in the bell. Well, this shapes the sound, but in the old days, this is how horn players changed the pitch of their notes, like this. So I'm going to show you. Whoops. Let's make sure I don't knock my triple horn behind me. So Beethoven wrote a sonata for horn and piano. And it's the first sonata that we actually attribute to a well-known composer. And so the opening is this. And I'm going to show you how my hand looks, because I'm going to have to change the pitches by doing that hand in and out. Now, obviously, this bell is much bigger than the bells would have been 250 years ago. But the idea is composers started experimenting with this. Now, Mozart wrote us 4 incredible concertos, along with some other pieces that are very, very famous. He took it to such an extreme that nobody touched the virtuosity of Mozart's concertos for horn until Robert Schumann came along and wrote a couple pieces, and then Richard Strauss after him. But really, other than that, composers were using the instrument as a natural horn. The valves came in, and this is interesting. Beethoven's Symphony No. 9. We all know this one, the one with choir, joyful, joyful. At the end, there is a very famous fourth horn solo in this piece that is so chromatic that it could not be played by a natural horn that was used at the time. This was experimental, and Beethoven used this in his piece. So Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 is the first time we actually get chromatic instruments with valves. Now, there were these valved instruments were single F horns for a long time until 1880 or so in Germany again, where they created an instrument called double horn, where they put 2 horns on top of each other with the valve system, which was nobody liked, by the way. And in fact, horn players tend to be very conservative musically, and so they fought this just like they fought valves in the beginning. The French especially. So the French conservatories required that you played natural horn all the way into the 20th century, which is marvelous in its own way. So the double horn came from Germany. The triple horn, which I have behind me, that was invented about 50 years ago. And now these instruments are kind of heavy, the triple horns. But so essentially we have single horns, double horns, triple horns. Now I want to show you right now a really pretty magical video. Okay, let's go over here. So we're going to go. I want to show you a very unique instrument that is only used in Vienna by the Vienna Philharmonic. This is called a Pumpenhorn. So this is a horn in F, a single horn that has Pumpen valves. You'll see this. I hope.
Hi, it's Sam Barker here from the Motley Fool. Behind me is Landmark Mall.
All right. So this is Back to the Future. So these are single horns. You can see that they're very weird looking. Okay, so right there, that sound is absolutely unique in the world, the Vienna sound. It's quite stunning, and it's very difficult to play those instruments. But I'm going to show you the Berlin Philharmonic playing the most famous horn quartet with orchestra piece, the Schumann Concertstück. And this is a different sound, but also quite incredible. So this group is really quite famous, and there is Sarah Willis on the end. She is the very first female brass player in the Berlin Philharmonic. So if you know about the history of the Berlin Philharmonic, this was an all-male orchestra for many, many, many years, and so it's now they're not anymore. I mean, there's quite a few women, but she is the first brass player, and she's from England. Quite stunning. Now, the horn players of the world practice orchestral excerpts all the time. This is what we do to get jobs. And so what we're going to look at is the Berlin Philharmonic again and playing Strauss's Till Eulenspiegel. So there is a little solo at the beginning, which is famous. It's one of the most famous things that we have, which all of us need to have memorized. And here is this marvelous performance. It's by Radek Babarek. And so that's it. So that's the entire excerpt. In fact, our whole life is consumed with orchestral excerpts, and they're primarily German. So I really think it's be very interesting for you to see right now what an excerpt list looks like. And so we're going to go there. So let's close this off and close this off. And we're going to go to this right here. Okay. This is the Boston Symphony's fourth horn audition from 2005. Look at that list. So a horn player practices these little 5 to 20 measure excerpts, and they have to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, it's bye-bye. And they have just spent $2,000 traveling to Boston to audition. You see that the solos, horn concerto by Mozart or a Bach cello suite. So these positions are highly coveted. This is a very highly paid job, but this is the Boston Symphony. I bring you to the Marine Band, which is considered to be the finest military band in the United States. Their list is actually more difficult than most professional orchestras because not only do they have orchestral pieces, as you can see, but they have very difficult band pieces as well. Okay, right here, there is the, so this is what the actual application looks like for the United States Marine Band. So it looks pretty basic for a while, and then they give you the excerpts. So we've got von Weber, we have the Mendelssohn Symphony No. 3, Percy Grainger, some more Mendelssohn, Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, Shostakovich. It goes on and on and on, but then they talk about the qualifications. So you have to go through a secret security clearance, through the White House. I mean, this is a big deal. Not only that, you have to be a certain weight. So, for instance, I'm 5'7". So what is that? That's 60 67 inches. So I need to be between 121 and 175. Okay, that's no problem now. I weigh 160. But last year at this time, I weighed 230 pounds. So I would not be able to apply for this. This goes through the pay grade. They actually get paid pretty much. The Marine Band gets about $68,000 plus all these benefits. This is the New York Philharmonic's principal horn audition list. So this is infamous because the New York Philharmonic has had this audition about 4 times in the last couple of years, and they keep on not hiring somebody because nobody is good enough for them. And it's amazing because the person who continues to play principal for them is a member of the section, and he keeps on auditioning, and they don't give him the job full time. It's quite interesting. But look at this list. This is an extensive list. And it should be because this person makes $350,000 a year as principal horn. So in orchestras, the most important person, of course, is the concertmaster, then probably the principal oboe, and then it's the principal horn player. This is the Ocala Symphony horn audition rep list. This is very standard. Till Eulenspiegel by Strauss, Ein Heldenleben, Tchaikovsky Symphony No. 5, Wagner, and Brahms. So, okay. We're going to show you another video right now of something quite stunning. It is considered to be the most watched video on YouTube for a horn player. And it is by one of my friends, Anna-Mia from Sweden. It is her in a palace in Sweden playing Siegfried's horn call. First, we got to watch a little bit of this. Skip ad. Now she's in a mall where I'm going to move her to the, she's taking out. So that is really one of the most famous things that we have for horn. Okay, so the life of a horn player in orchestra is pretty marvelous. I am just going to tell you. So I have been playing in orchestras for a long time as principal horn primarily. We are the ones who generally get solo bows. And that's after you do a solo and then, you know, when the piece is and everyone's clapping and they say, oh, horn players stand up. This is our world. We really do have the greatest solos in the orchestra. The horn is a very heroic instrument. I absolutely love it. And I love clapping. And I like playing for live audiences. So, which brings me to this next set of pictures I want to show you. Okay, so here we go. All right. Okay, so right here. All right. So this is last year, spring, February. This is my stand with the Valdosta Symphony Orchestra in Georgia. So I've been playing with them since I've been here. And I was playing principal horn on this concert. And I didn't think anything of it. This is February last year. And so this is what my view was. And after that, I found myself in New York City. I like traveling a great deal. And so every year I like to go to New York to see concerts and Broadway musicals, to walk around, eat great food. So here I am, of course, at the Met. And this is David Geffen Hall. This is the New York Philharmonic. So this is last year, February 20th. And I got myself a box seat to watch the New York Philharmonic. There they are on stage with Renee Fleming. This was stunning. I mean, this was a great concert of new music by women composers. So this is the 20th of February. And I came back to the university, and here is my symphonic band students at the first, right before spring break. So this is at the end of February. Everybody's happy. Everyone goes off to spring break. Here is the faculty brass quintet. So we are the group that performed for you all last February. And this is our concert that we gave on March 11th at Oak Hammock at 7:30. And then, of course, this was the very last thing that was allowed into Oak Hammock because everything was closed down the next day because of COVID. And so this is where I found myself. This is my studio at home. All of us had to leave the university and teach starting online from there. This is snaking out my lead pipe. This is the stuff. Yes, this does accumulate. I just wanted to show you that. At a certain point, we all realized that in order for us to perform together, that we had to make sure that brass players were far apart. So this is 6 feet. This is my house. I bought new furniture, so I was waiting for it to arrive. But right there, there are 2 chairs 6 feet apart. Clearly in orchestras, people sit much closer. Oops, okay, let me just undo that. This right here is 10 feet apart. So then we suddenly got to that point with the university. This is my horn studio. Oh, and by the way, during the lockdown, we were also having a $6 million renovation of the School of Music. So I wasn't even in my office. This is my office when I got back after 8 months being away. So this is where I do all my teaching. This is my grad student, Leslie. She designed masks for the horn studio. This is the mic that I use now, this very professional level mic, because I just absolutely despise the sound of just speaking into the computer. So this last semester, I did teach in person. The entire brass and percussion faculty taught in person. So I would wear a mask and they wouldn't. I bought a HEPA air filter unit for the studio. Okay, so none of us performed any concerts for a long time. This is my very first concert in Valdosta, playing the Dvorak Wind Serenade. So we did play for an audience of 100. The auditorium there seats 800, but they allowed 100 to come in. And so there I am backstage with my official mask. This right here is what Horn Studio looked like this semester. So I decided to bring in some of my former students who now have careers to meet with us on Mondays for Horn Studio class. So this is what it looks like for the students. So let's bring this up here just to give you some more pictures of what. Okay, so that should come up in just a second. All right, here it is. So if you've ever played a brass instrument when an animal is in the room, a lot of times the dogs will start howling along. Now, they won't go running. They actually are singing along. So this is one of my buddies in Sarasota. This is the Schumann Concertstück that I had played for you with the Berlin Philharmonic. However, this is the Valdosta Symphony. Right here, behind me is Jeff Agrell. He is the amazing horn professor at the University of Iowa. And to the 2 sides of us are 2 of our students together. James Nagus off to the left. He teaches at the University of Georgia now. And the other one right there is another student of mine, Jim. And Jim is in the West Point Band. This is the Brevard Symphony Orchestra in Melbourne, Florida. I was principal horn for 14 years. Here we are on a tour of Paris. This is La Madeleine, and this is my horn section. So these are three of my former students. James, who teaches at the University of Georgia next to me. Alexis, she is in the ceremonial brass of Washington, D.C. And then Pat, he's actually from Gainesville. His dad was head of dentistry here for years, Pat Smith. He teaches at Virginia Commonwealth University. This, of course, is the Gator Band, and right in front of them is one of my students, Justin Renzi. He has studied with me now for 6 years. Here are some of my students from 2 years ago. We were just having a guest artist with us. This is my horn studio, performing with Jeff Agrell. So this is what the world looks like when we're all actually performing on stage. Here is another group of my students. This right here is Mahler Symphony No. 5 horn section with the Valdosta Symphony. You see there are 9 of us. Orchestras usually only have 4 horns with an assistant sometimes, but Mahler, of course, asks for 5 trillion people. And then this one right here, way in the corner, is Lisa Bontrager. She is Regent Professor at Penn State University and a dear friend of mine, and we're, of course, having Krishna lunch. So there's some videos right there. Now, I want to show you some of the tricks of the horn. So when you meet with Randy Lee, and by the way, I love my brass faculty. They're incredible, and they all could be like my children. They're young, okay? All the other brass players have 5,000 instruments and 7 trillion mutes. French horn has 1 mute. Here it is, okay? We have 1 mute. So when you put this into the bell, the sound is like this. So it's kind of a nice little sound. This is this is the only toy that we have. When you deal with the horn, you've got to do some special equipment stuff. This is our oil. I put this into my valves. This is like sewing machine oil. I use this on the outer mechanisms, and this is some goop that I put on my slides. So these are some more things we have here. Okay, so we've got to show you a hilarious video right now. Horn players like to make fun of things every now and then, and so let's see, share. Okay, here we go. So we're going to watch this video of the piece that inspired me as a kid, Star Wars, the theme to Star Wars. But this is called The Worst French Horn Player. Now, this really isn't a bad player, but this gives you an idea of...
Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. Jeffrey Melton fought for me all the way.
All right, here we go. Okay, so that actually is a really good player. But the idea is when Star Wars came out in 1977, a ton of us bought the album. It was a double album with a London Symphony. And I actually transposed all the parts myself. And that's about what I sounded like in 8th grade. But that was Star Wars, which, John Williams, the parts are the best. So we're going to go right now to the most famous horn solo that we have. It's the Richard Strauss Horn Concerto No. 1. He wrote it when he was 17 years old for his father, who was the most famous horn player in Europe at the time. So this piece is going to be performed by Marie-Louise Neunecker, one of Germany's great horn players. And so here we go. Okay, so this really is the most famous piece that we have. And so if you go to orchestra concerts and they say, "Oh, we're going to have a horn soloist," I guarantee it's going to be this concerto or one of the Mozart concertos. That this is our standard literature. Now, I want to show you that piece right there. The opening fanfare is by far the most famous thing that we have in the literature. It's our calling card. But I can play all of that on natural horn. I can play it using just one fingering. And so the whole idea behind Strauss's music, it was inspired by his father, who really was the most famous horn player in Europe at the time. And all of the Strauss tone poems have the greatest horn parts ever written. And they're very difficult, but they're very idiomatic because he understood the natural instrument. So that entire beginning can be played on E flat. This is a horn concerto in E flat. And by the way, that is the concerto key of almost all horn concertos. So I'm just going to press finger number 1 because this is my E flat horn right here. It's going to go through this slide, and I'm not going to move it. So the whole thing can be played on one fingering. So that everything about this instrument is really based on the overtone series itself. Oh, I wanted to show you this. So you see this around my bell, this really beautiful silver garland, and it's very pretty. And I did pay extra for it, but this is actually a resonating tool. It's a 4 ounces of silver that actually focuses the sound when it comes out of my bell. Speaking of bell, I want to show you something else here. So here's my bell. So I just took my horn apart. The whole idea behind this is that if you had the traditional cases, they're very clunky. And I'm going to show you what one of those looks like. This right here, this is the traditional horn case. This is what I had to put between my legs on a yellow school bus from kindergarten through high school in Wisconsin. And I lived in the middle of the farmland. And let me tell you something, that bus ride was 45 minutes every single day with this thing, this heavy piece of wood and fabric on my lap. So professional horns, they cut the bell, and this does not affect the sound. It actually strengthens it right here. And what we do is we put it into gig bags. So here is Here's one of my gig bags. This was made in Colorado. It has a kangaroo pouch right here. It's very light. It actually protects the instrument rather well. And a strap. You could use this as a backpack or around your shoulder. So that allows us to carry the instruments much easier. If you were ever wondering how much French horns cost, my new double horn cost me $10,000 last February. That's cheap. My triple horn is $18,000. A basic horn for somebody in college would be $5,000. So that's how much our instruments cost. Again, it's because it's so complex. You see, this isn't, trumpets are cheap. That's why trumpet players can have 20 trumpets. I'm sure that Randy Lee is going to be playing quite a few of his instruments for you. But for the horn itself, it's a great investment. Yeah, so there's these little spatulas right here. This is how I play it. And on this other side, you can actually see the valves moving. Okay, so I know that you might have some questions or something. Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to, let me just check something here on my screen. Yes, I wanted to share one other thing with you. So horn players actually have summer camps that they go to. And the most famous one is up in New Hampshire called Ogunts. It's the Kendall Betts Horn Camp. Kendall Betts I played in the Minnesota Orchestra for years. He was quite incredible. And I am on the faculty of this camp. So I'm going to show you what this place looks like. So what happens is we have horn players from the ages of 16 to 85 who come to camp. They can come from 1 to 3 weeks, and they get individualized attention from very, very renowned horn players from throughout the world, from Europe, the United States, Asia. This is what it looks like. So we spend a week here. Here are some of the happy campers. All of them are playing different instruments, by the way. This was one of the buildings that I taught in. All right, they had the greatest food in the world, I'm just going to tell you. They had chickens in the back, that we ate their eggs and stuff like that. This was a pretty basic breakfast. This group of individuals are the horn composers of the camp. To the left is Pat Hughes. He teaches at the University of Texas. Torrin Hallett, next to him, young guy, is at Manhattan School of Music in the graduate programs. There's Lowell Greer with the gray beard. He was the principal horn of Detroit and the United States' most famous natural horn player. Me, James Nagus, my former student who's at Georgia behind me, and Jeff Agrell from the University of Iowa. So you spend the entire day immersed in horn. Here we are at the lake, some more of the students. And we love to eat, of course. This is after a concert. And everybody has chores. So this is prep chores. That was the most disgusting thing that ever came out of a student's lead pipe. Every year I have an annual, let's clean out your lead pipe day. Food, food, food. That's all we think about. This was the horn warm-up in the morning. So you see that the ages are from the far left corner. That's David. David lives in Oregon. He's 84 years old. And then the kid over here on the right, he's 14. This is some of the staff. These individuals are spectacular musicians. More food. This is where we do concerts. To the far right, that is Frank Lloyd. Frank is one of the most famous horn players in Europe. He's from the United Kingdom. This is just a group of students after a concert. Right in the front here, Dreyfus. That student is one of the University of Florida students. That's Jack. This is the world's longest candy counter. I love food, so this is in Littleton. And this is everybody saying goodbye. So we have events like that all the time, horn camps. Hopefully this year, we're all praying that we can do it in the summer, get together in person. We'll see what happens. So that's what's been occurring. So really, my last concert last March was with you all. at Oak Hammock and then my first one this year was in October with Valdosta. Okay, so let's go for questions and stuff.
Don, I'll start with you. Do you have any comments before we go to questions?
There we are. You can see, I think, everyone, why I love this instrument as much as I do. And the question I have of Paul is, perhaps I'm biased when I say that, but French horn is the only brass instrument that regularly performs with the woodwinds. For example, a woodwind quintet will be made up of a flute, oboe, a clarinet, a bassoon, and the French horn. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts as to why that is the case?
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, Don. One of the reasons why the horn is so special in the music world is that we blend with every single other family very well. So we're not kind of aggressive. Well, we can be, but we're an instrument that plays well with the string players, that plays well with the woodwind players. We are the balance in the orchestra. We are what brings everybody together. And one of the main reasons, of course, is the fact that, let me pick up a horn that actually has a bell on it. You know, when I'm playing this instrument, it doesn't make any sense logically. You know that my bell is facing the wall. Isn't that weird? You know how the trumpet and the trombone, they're like facing your face. The woodwinds, the clarinet, the oboe, they face towards the audience. Check this out. My bell is facing to the wall. And by the way, the wall is very important to horn players. If you put us near a curtain, that's awful, okay? Anytime I am in a concert and suddenly I am in an auditorium where there's a big velvety curtain behind me, it's game over because it will suck up my sound. What I need is a hard surface to bounce off of. So for instance, right now, which sounds very lovely, but if I aim it towards you, okay? Now I'm going to pretend I'm like a trombone player. So I'm going to take my hand out of the bell. I am not making that up, okay? I've been playing for 47 years, but that's how crappy I sound when I take my hand out and when I aim it towards the audience. Sometimes, by the way, Mahler asks you to do this in his gargantuan symphonies. You know, when there's 24 horns on the stage and they stand up and they like aim the bell to the audience. Well, the audience is far enough so that they're not going to be hurt. But really, we love playing with woodwind players, you know, because we're very sensitive people, horn players. Not like trumpet players, I'm just saying.
Okay, now questions from anyone.
Okay, Richard Petway, go ahead.
Richard, have you unmuted?
He's muted.
Oh, Richard, unmute yourself.
Okay. There you go.
I noticed the peculiarity that you play with your left hand.
Yes.
While the right hand is in the horn.
Yep.
And, you know, most people in the world are right-handed. Is that, do you have to be left-handed to play this instrument, or does it help, or are you ambidextrous, or does it matter at all whether you're right-handed or left-handed or right-brained or left-brained to play this instrument best?
That's a great question, Richard. Horn players are very different than the other brass players. They play with their right hand. So trumpet players play with their right hand. So do tuba. So do euphonium players. Trombonists play with their right hand with the slide. But you know what? I never even thought about that when I started playing the horn in 6th grade. I mean, they just kind of shoved it into my hand, and suddenly there it was, and it just, you know, they said, okay, put your fingers in these little positions. And really, if you think about it, I'm only, for the most part, pressing 3 things down. I'm making all of my sounds with 3. It's kind of like a stenographer in court. You know, I've never understood how that person could be writing all those things just going on these like tiny little levers. The horn is like that, so I don't think about it. You also, Richard, brought up something very interesting that I wanted to talk about just briefly, is the fact that it doesn't matter if you have big lips, small lips, if you're big, tall, whatever. There are horn players that are all sorts of sizes, all sorts of colors, male and female. And by the way, in the horn world, horn players tend to be essentially split between male and female. And also now professionals, lots of horn professors are women. I mean, we don't even think about it in the horn world. This is very different than the tuba world. And what's exciting about the University of Florida is our tuba professor that we hired last year, Danielle, she is amazing. And so she's like a role model for a lot of women. But, you know, for the horn, we come in all shapes and sizes. But we don't really think about this. Now, there is a horn player who was in the Boston Symphony who lost use of his left hand. And so he had to have a special horn designed for him that actually played on the right. And it was opposite. It was like a mirror horn. And so that's what he used. But that's a great question. Thanks, Richard.
Other questions? Raise your hand, please.
Shirley, go ahead.
I have two silly questions, okay?
No, I love silly questions.
I'm wondering if your personality description fits your women players also.
Yes. Okay. So we do joke about this a lot. All right. Horn players, you know, this is kind of a crazy world. We're not as aggressive as trumpet players. I'm just going to tell you right now. If you go to a trumpet convention, this is really scary. There's a lot of testosterone. Okay. Horn players, we get along great. We're very kind of nerdy sometimes too. Like we'll be at horn workshops and we'll all get together and say, hey, let's play quartets. And so we play jazz quartets. I mean, we don't play it very well because we're not jazz players. But no, the women horn players of the world, and they're stunning, I am telling you. And by the way, we all know each other. This is a very small family. And so, and we get along.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, the women we're all about the same way.
As a child, I played the bugle in a drum and bugle corps, but I spent at least 95% of my time polishing the bugle. Do you all have to polish any instruments like that?
That is great. You know, that brings up the whole thing in the horn world of unlacquered or lacquered. Now, you see how shiny my horn is? Okay, I like it lacquered. So there's lacquer on this, which protects the instrument. However, a lot of horn players don't have lacquer, and so their horns, they have to shine it up, like you said.
Big job, right?
Yeah, and you know how sometimes somebody will say, well, that horn's really ugly. They'll see a very famous horn player playing a horn that's not lacquered, and they'll say, that's an ugly horn. It must be a bad instrument. No, it just doesn't have lacquer. This one right here has lacquer. In fact, all three of my instruments have lacquer. But I did have a horn at one point which was unlacquered, and let me tell you something. Shirley, I'll tell you, I'm kind of retentive. It's my German background, I think, where I need things clean. And so I did it so much that I actually started making the metal weak, you know, by rubbing too much. Yeah, so it's probably best I have lacquered horn, so I just stepped back from that a bit.
I think David Polliger has it.
But this was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
David, you're muted.
Thank you, Paul. Do all French horns have rotary valves? Are there any with piston valves? And is this because of the tubing configuration?
Yeah, that's great, David. There are some horns that have a thumb piston valve. And these are Schmidt horns from the Weimar Republic. And Yamaha horns in Japan started making some of those too. But for the most part, those piston instruments are trumpet or, you know, some kind of trombone configuration. For the most part, we are rotary valve instruments, except if you remember that video that I showed you guys. And by the way, I have a huge document with all this stuff and links to those videos that I'm going to be sharing. Those Vienna Pumpenhorns Actually, those are instruments where they go in and out like a rotary, but you can actually see them moving in and out. It's so weird. And they are very difficult to play. And the sound, and it's the only in Vienna do they do that. Isn't that interesting? But for the most part, we're rotary valves, which makes for also a very smooth, warm sound. We think so. Piston valves are really fast, like trumpet players, and so they can do very fancy schmancy virtuosic stuff. That's not who we are. But that's good, David. I like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dale, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say I really enjoyed this session. I have no musical background other than the little bit I learned in piano so many hundreds of years ago.
Oh,
and
super.
you must be a great professor because it was so entertaining. And I felt that I learned something. So it was just fantastic. And I could not say something. I usually don't say anything,
Oh,
but I want to tell you, you were marvelous. I really enjoyed you.
thank you, Dale. You know what? I think I was very lucky. When I was a little kid, my parents would sit me in front of this old German stereo, and they knew that I would just watch it and listen for hours and hours. And then I told them I wanted to play piano. So my father's from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and he went to a Catholic grade school there, and they were giving away one of their pianos at the Catholic school, and so for free. So we rented a U-Haul in 1968 for $5, and we drove, 1 hour up to Sheboygan, and we lugged that thing into the basement. And my father took out his wrenches and started tuning it, okay? Because my dad played cornet. He went to Catholic high school in Milwaukee. And so I started taking piano lessons down the street by this lady named Myrtle Morrill. So Myrtle was great. Lessons were $5 for 30 minutes, and my mom would save the money from the grocery money so I could have lessons. Well, so I took lessons, only 3 years of lessons. And one day they told me that my piano teacher died, and they told me that I killed her. They told me that I didn't practice enough and she died because of me. She was 88 years old. And so this is kind of like the guilt thing they gave me. But, I love doing music. I can't imagine doing anything else. It was so great this last semester to actually teach my students in person. And it was one-on-one, just me and them, me masked and them in the lessons, but just to see them and to be with them. I absolutely love being here. I can't imagine being anywhere else. This morning, I did a 5-mile walk in San Velasco hammock. During the last 10 months, I have discovered 45 parks around the area. And I've created a document and a file of pictures. But, this is fun. And by the way, you're going to hear everybody say French horn is the hardest instrument. I think it's actually pretty easy. I mean, really? What do? You spit into this mouthpiece, you press a couple of little knobs, and you stick your hand in the bell. I mean, that's about it. So I really don't think it's that hard. In fact, but I tell everybody it is,
Well, you're wonderful. And it's interesting that you would say that because my first music teacher that I really loved, she died.
Oh, they told me I killed her. And they said that I was an ingrateful, I literally said this, that I did not practice enough. And I was like, really? But I mean, I just love doing what I do. And next week we start the semester again. So we're anticipating that come the fall, we will be back in concerts together again, which will be good.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to that too, because look, I did not get into this field because I don't like people and I don't like entertaining and being on stage. I like being on stage.
Obviously. Yes.
I love playing. There's nothing like clapping, okay? And I like being in an audience too. And so I'm looking forward to when we're all finally back together again,
Other questions? Well, I have another, if I may.
Yeah.
You showed us the photo early on of you in middle school, I think.
Yep.
Marching in a parade playing the French horn.
Yep.
But when you go see the Gator Marching Band, the horn players are all there, but they're playing something else. Could you talk about that?
Right. So what they're doing now is they're playing something called a mellophone. So a mellophone or a marching horn, it looks like a trumpet that had too much food, that went to the buffet. You know, went on the cruise ship, kind of like I used to look like last year. I'm just going to tell you guys, I weighed 230 pounds last March when I played for you all. And now, but I finally realized I need to not do that. But that's what a mellophone looks like. It's huge. And so it's loud and it faces forward. So that's the big deal. French horn is horrible marching. When I went to Florida State University as an undergrad, 1981, I actually marched with my French horn in the marching band there. But only the music majors did. The non-majors played the marching mellophones. And so I actually have 7 of my students in the studio here who are in the Gator band. But they play that because it's a really loud instrument. It's kind of crass. It's like a over-bloated trumpet. But yeah, the French horn is not used in marching band.
Now, is the mouthpiece for the mellophone the same mouthpiece that they use for the French horn?
It's different. It's bigger.
Oh, it is bigger.
Yeah. So again, let me bring out my, this is an interesting thing. So all mouthpieces are very different. Now, I use a very bougie mouthpiece. This right here was designed by a man named Walter Lawson, who was America's greatest horn maker. He was brilliant. And I've been playing this type of mouthpiece since 1987 when I went to grad school at Stony Brook University. But it's like Harry Potter movies. You know when he's getting his wand and Ollivander, the wand maker, says, the wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. And so, mouthpieces are very different, but this one right here is perfect for me. It's not too short. It's not too wide. It's not too long. I have one of those, not too hot, not too cold, just right type of mouthpieces. So I have 3 of them right here. And this one actually has a gold rim, which is kind of exciting. I just did it because why not? Some people are actually allergic to metal and they have to use these gold rims. But yeah, so their mouthpiece is bigger. But look, again, I'm a one-person horn. I'm one horn guy. Okay, I'm very committed to one relationship at a time. That's why my triple horn is not happy with me right now, because my double, which I premiered at Okamic last March, this is the instrument in my first performance there. This is now my instrument. I told the horn maker, Johannes Finke, that when I decide I've had enough of my midlife crisis and I go back to a double horn, I'm going to buy his instrument. And I did. And his wife is from, Mariela is from Argentina. She actually picked my lead pipe out for me, and she tested it. She's a horn player. So I know the horn maker who made this for me. I have a relationship with him. He's a very good friend. So that's kind of exciting.
Very good. We probably have time for maybe one more question. Is there anyone else who has a question? Anyone at all?
I don't see anything in the chat, but I will say that when this course is over, we need to have Paul back and do a course on all the parks in the area.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'll tell you what I will do. I'm going to send you my Google Drive link. This document, like yesterday, for instance, I went to this one park near Palatka. Oh my gosh, Rice Creek Preserve. It had 45 bridges over a swampy levee system. And I'm not talking about going 20 miles on a hike, okay? I'm not like a crazy person. But I have categorized all of them, and each one has a sub-file of pictures. I will send it to you guys, okay? And I'm going to send you the document that I created for this presentation as well, which has even more stuff in it. More stuff than you'd ever want to know about French horn. But I want you to know that the brass quintet, the faculty brass quintet, cannot wait to be back with you all. And we've decided that when we can all do concerts again, you're going to be like our first concert. It just makes sense.
We'll welcome you back, Paul. I think many of you were here and heard them play a year ago. So shall we Hey, thank you. I know you can't hear the applause, but you can see it.